evolution of HR from being task-based, where it was all about leave, attendance management, was the need to actually create a digital strategy to be able to deal with that business need. The traditional methods of working, the mindset to constantly evolve, to constantly innovate, to constantly bring about changes. Good evening, everyone. So this session is an introduction to digital HR, where we'll be looking at why digital HR, what is the need for it, where has HR been so far, and things like that. So it's not a deep dive session into digital HR really. So let's begin. So this is essentially the agenda for the day. We'll be looking at the evolution of HR till date and the demands on the HR fraternity as such, and what are some of the emerging skill sets required for us as HR professionals to be successful. We would also be looking at digital transformation and digital HR, and we'll wrap up the session with some case discussions. When I talk about evolution of HR, I go back many decades, say about 50, 60 years back. So HR has really evolved from being task-based at that time. So by task-based, I mean that the core focus of HR professionals or people with, professionals who are with people services was in terms of handling certain tasks allocated to them. This was also a time when we would, when there was industrial revolution happening. So a lot of industrial disputes. So the focus of the HRs was more in terms of handling industrial relations. And the key element needed by HR professionals was handling day-to-day operations, day-to-day tasks. So we are talking about an era where record keeping and reporting was the primary responsibility. We fast forward a couple of years or a couple of decades, and HR became skill-based. By skill-based, I meant that we are looking at specific skills needed by people in HR for them to be successful. So here we are saying that someone who's an HR professional in a software industry probably needs a little more analytical skills than regular HRs, because in order to really screen relevant CVs, we are looking at communication skills, we are looking at people management skills. So the evolution of HR from being task-based, where it was all about leave, attendance management, salaries, to skills, which became the primary criteria for HRs to be recruited, I would say. Again, we fast forward a couple of decades, and today as we speak, HR has become competency-based. By competency-based, I mean that now we are not looking at just plain skills. We are looking at examples of behavior when these skills get translated. So actual actions which will result in some visible outcomes, some successful outcomes. So for instance, if I say communication skills can be perceived very differently by different people. For some people, communication skills could be the ability to write an email better. For someone, it could be about ability to voice out opinions or articulate words clearly. But the moment I say competency, I define that communication means the person displays an accurate ability to write well. The person is able to articulate his or her opinion in a very tangible manner. So all these are specific behaviors that I'm mentioning, which actually will lead to some successful outcome.
Don't forget to press the like button and leave your comment. Share the video and subscribe to our channel for more HR-related content. To never miss a notification on our latest uploads, make sure you hit the bell icon.
So largely we've seen the evolution of HR from being task-based to skill-based, and of course now it's about competency-based HR. So again, I take you back, about 50, 60 years back. So I'm saying the journey so far has been from industrial relations, so managing industrial disputes, trade union disputes, all about industrial relations. Then it was record keeping, reporting, so a lot of personal management activities, what we today call it as HR operations largely. Then the focus shifted from personnel management to a little more of other activities, which was about talent training and development, about compensation planning, some bit of employee relations. So, how do you control absenteeism? How do you ensure that people do not leave? So we see the aspect of employee relations coming into picture. Gradually, the whole area of employee relations gave way to employee engagement and employee experience. So the whole concept of net promoter score, that do my employees feel engaged with the organization? Will they be a big supporter? Will they actually recommend this organization as a place to be? And this is about the entire employee journey, right from the time he or she is hired till the time the employee resigns or separates from the organization. And today, the role of HR has expanded to becoming business partners, to becoming advisors to business. So from being a purely support function, which aided the core functions of organizations, today HR professionals are becoming advisors, are becoming influences in decisions. So leading to some organizational decisions which impact the effectiveness and the excellence. So largely we've seen the role of HR expanding immensely over the last 50, 60 years from just a small portion of industrial disputes and relations to now having an organizational wide impact. Now, if this is a scenario, then obviously the current situation puts a lot of demands on the HR professionals. So what are the demands that the trends, the emerging trends is putting on HR fraternity? So now we're looking at HR professionals who have some business acumen, which means I no longer just solve or I no longer support business when they come to me with an issue, but I partner with the SBUs or I partner with my business units and try to resolve the critical business decisions. So I need to have a very commercial mindset, which means HR itself has become a profit center. So when I say a profit center, I mean that the moment you start aiding your business units, you also impact productivity, you impact profitability because you solve a lot of business challenges. So we need people with business acumen. We also need people who can be change agents. So HRs today cannot be satisfied with just being a support function and just doing things that they were doing all the time. We need to have a mindset which is not fixed, which is very flexible, a growth-enabled mindset. Because finally, the world is changing, organizations are changing, economies are changing. So obviously, we as HR professionals cannot afford to stay where we were a couple of years earlier. And the third and the most important thing is more and more, this whole domain of HR is being credited as, or let's say is being valued as opinion leaders. So to a large extent, how our employees view our organization, how people perceive organizations, we have a huge impact, and hence we need to don the hat of thought and opinion leaders also. So essentially, we cannot be complacent in being just a support function, doing things that the way it was done. But we have to be proactive. We have to acquire a greater role, because now with things changing all around us, it needs HR professionals to have some very, very different skill sets, right? So what has got me so far, it's not necessary it will take me further ahead in future, isn't it? So as HR professionals, I need to have a mindset which which is able to look at data, which is evidence driven, which can take data based decisions. So I should be able to look at problems, I should be able to dissect the problem, diagnose the root cause, suggest improvements, suggest solutions, help implement, evaluate the course or evaluate my plan of action, and then obviously again go back and suggest improvements. So a total diagnostic mindset. Now, diagnostic mindset or cannot be complete unless we also have and technological skill sets and competencies. So as HR professionals, we cannot be again satisfied that I know Excel and that's about it. The gamut for technical expertise has increased so much, and we need to be really up to date with what is happening, because technology is what is defining lives, it's defining industries, it's defining organizations. For us to work with technology, we need to have a very agile mindset. By agile mindset, I mean very nimble, to be able to think on our feet, to be adaptable, not to be restricted with what I have been doing so far, but really my ability to experiment, my ability to take some risks and evaluate that, move ahead. So I need a lot of nimbleness on as a critical success factor. And of course, last but not the least is my ability to partner strategically with business, which means, again, the whole concept of human resource business partners. So I am becoming a critical interface in the organization, helping the business units for which I'm responsible for uh, drive greater profits, drive bigger margins, drive productivity, and drive profitability. So we see the landscape for HRs has changed drastically over the last couple of years. So which brings us to the most pertinent question is then, what is digital transformation? We talk so much about digitalization and about digitalization of all services, digital transformation, but do we really understand what it means? For most people, digitalization is about using applications, softwares, tools which are available, using some HRIS software. But is that it? Is that where digitalization ends? Or we are also looking at process improvements. We are looking at changing the way people start working. So we are also bringing about the element of people, because human resource, from that, we cannot take out the element of H, human. So we are looking at people transformation, we are looking at process transformation. However, are we just looking at these in silos, or are we looking at it from an organization? So are we looking at it from permeating the whole culture of the organization? Is that what digital transformation means? So am I just looking at digital transformation as application oriented, as being able to use the latest technology that's there? Or am I expanding the scope and looking at this as the way of working, as the most natural way of working in the organization, as something which defines the culture of the organization? So my take is digital transformation cannot be in black or white. It is not about just one aspect and not the other. If we have to truly understand digital HR, and if we have to truly understand how meaningful we can make it in our organizations, we have to look at it as a whole, as a sum of various parts. Now, when I say sum of various parts, some of A couple of these parts could be that it's about having or leading innovation and change. As they say, change is the only constant thing. So we are constantly focusing on innovation at every step. So it is a constant work in progress. It's nothing like I have reached so far and I cannot move any further. So the mindset to constantly evolve, to constantly innovate, to constantly bring about changes, and also keep improving. That is one aspect. The other thing is, how can I create a better customer experience? So we talk about customer satisfaction, but now we are looking at customer delight. So moving from fulfilling the basic requirements of the customer to customer satisfaction to customer delight, where they would promote our brand, right? Now, with customer delight, obviously the most important criteria is employee experience. So are we able to create a good employee experience right from the time the employee joins the organization? So I'm not looking at creating employee experience in silos where I do some fun activities or I undertake some outbound trips and I give them a good feeling. I'm looking at the time that from the time I screen the CVs and I call a prospect for an interview till the time he or she resigns or separates from the organization, the entire employee life cycle and employee journey within an organization, what is the experience? Because the kind of an experience that an employee will have, which will actually define to a large extent the customer experience also. If an employee has excellent experience within an organization, you can be rest assured that the natural outcome of it would be a fantastic customer experience. Then we are looking at viability and scalability. Again, as I said, it's not about having done something right the first time and stopping there. So are my systems, are my processes uh, really scalable? Tomorrow, can I really move up and meet the challenges of my organization? Tomorrow, can I look at meeting challenges that the economy throws on me? So when COVID-19 happened, when pandemic happened, how quickly were organizations able to kick in their BCP, their business continuity processes? Were the technologies aligned, or were there some companies who really struggled to kick in their BCPs, while for some it worked like with a click of the fingers? So which means how viable it was, not for that particular moment in time, but to face challenges that lay ahead. And last but not the least, the sum of all of this is about organizational excellence. It's about organizational effectiveness. So we are not just talking about HR processes which do not have an impact on the organization value system, organization culture, but we are talking about the entire thing as a whole. So each part, right from the various units, right from the employee, your customers, so all the various stakeholders uh, who impact the organization. So creating a good experience for them using technology, using tools, using improved processes, and leading to organizational effectiveness, which means the organization achieving its goals, the mission, and the organization in turn being very nimble on its feet to meet the challenges that probably future has it. So the moment we talk about digital HR, digital transformation, some very important questions that come to our mind are that why are we going digital, and what is the impact on our organization? investing so much in technical know-how for our HR professionals? What is the need to actually create a digital strategy? If at all there is a need for it, then how do we go about creating a digital strategy? And in this whole scheme of things, what is the role that the leadership plays? So these are some very, very important questions that emerge. So why do we need to go digital is because the world around us is changing fast. So just because we've come so far, basis our skill sets, basis whatever the companies had then, it doesn't mean they will be able to survive or even thrive later. So the world is changing so fast. And with the world changing, the economies are changing. So we've seen economies topple, we've seen new economies emerge, we've seen the so-called third world countries becoming important. So essentially, the landscape, economic landscape of the world has changed. Now, which also means that the business models for organizations have also changed, isn't it? So think of it, if we take example of Airbnb, till about a couple of decades back, it would have been unfathomable that you'll have a concept like Airbnb where every house can actually become, you can become owners and you can rent out your free space. But look at what it has done to this whole space of hospitality. Most people today would at least go on Airbnb for their first level of search before they finalize their hotels. Uber, look at Uber. A couple of decades back, who would have thought that there would be a service where you could, uh, you could share rides together with people. You could, just book it using mobile applications. You will have everything on your fingertips, and you will not have to really wave down cabs. You can just book them from the comfort of your homes and offices, hop into it, reach, pay using any of the payment gateways. But look at what it has done. Look at the emergence of, and not the emergence actually, now the dominance of online marketplace. So the brick and the mortar shops have given way to online. The Amazons of the world, every 15 days they have a sale going on, and each of them, every sale for them is doing fantastically well. How many of us really step out of our homes to buy things? So the entire functioning of the economy has changed. You look at anything today, right, from the smallest of a product to, a really, really expensive product. Everything is purchased online. We do not need to go outside. So things have become really, really simple. But at the same time, the processes have become complex within organizations, because we've seen the role and the services offerings of the organization expand and the role of people expand. So the people processes have become really, really complex today. So it's not just about few things. We are looking at employees, and we are touching employees at every single point in their journey through the organization. Also, all the stakeholders have become very, very demanding, whether it's our customers, clients, our employees, our peers, our vendors, business partners. We see more and more aware and knowledgeable stakeholder, and who are more demanding. So obviously all this puts a lot of pressure on organizations to use or to redefine the mechanisms of working, and really start looking at digital transformation, or start looking at digitalization of their processes, which will actually make their processes efficient and effective both. So when all this is happening, we obviously need a digital strategy in place. And the reason why we need is, as I mentioned earlier, that HRs today, we've reached a point where we are business partners, where I need to have a commercial credibility attached to me, where I should be able to solve a business problem. So, which means that there is a problem which is there. That problem could be related to talent acquisition, related to talent development, related to uh, you know, uh, time-consuming payroll, or relating to inefficient exits. So there is a problem which is impacting business, because each of these problems can actually have a business impact. And we are looking at solving them. We are looking at providing solutions to them. We are looking at partnering with them so that we're able to address. So the moment there is a business need, obviously we need a strategy to be able to deal with that business need. And to be able to deal with that business need, the traditional methods of working are becoming redundant now. More and more, how many of us really use, the standard uh, mechanisms of attendance? We don't. So biometrics, access cards, all this. So which means we need to deploy technology very, very effectively to be able to solve a business case, to be able to showcase that I have a solution for you. And the moment I talk about solution, it's about choices, right? There are so many things. I have a choice on, uh, you know, being where I was. So which means certain things have happened in a certain way. So I continue staying there, or I evolve, I change, I improve, I adopt something which is new, and I constantly challenge myself. So it is all about the choices that I'm making. And the moment I make a choice, right, I strategize to solve a business issue. So if we need a digital strategy, then how are we really going to create a digital strategy? So for anything, we need to go back to the basics, which is the organization's vision, mission, goals, and the value system. So vision is something really lofty and large, but mission is, when we break it down, bring it closer home. And goals give meaning to the so-called vision and mission. Now, for us to achieve our goals, there are some action plans needed. So the digital strategy has to start from the vision, mission, value system, goals of the organization, because it has to be completely aligned with it. A vision which says that as an organization, I want to be in the top 50 Fortune 500 companies, needs to adopt a strategy, a digital strategy, not only for HR, but for each of its functions. And HR probably would be the first uh, domains to adopt, because it defines how people work, right? So the moment I talk about creating a digital strategy, I'm looking at the ability of digital HR to integrate with all the other systems, whether it is sales, whether it is performance management, whether it is marketing, whether it is administration. So I'm looking at the ability of the digital HR system to integrate with all the various systems who till now had been operating as separate or in silos. And last but not the least, it's about, do I want to build a system from a scratch, which means do I need a bespoke system, something which has been developed only for me? Or am I at that phase in my organization life cycle where I don't have a digital strategy, or I have something in place and I want to build on that, I want to improve on that? So building from scratch or improving on my existing mechanism and methods that I have. So some inputs on how we can go about it. The fourth question was that, what are some of those leadership traits, which means for a digital HR transformation to happen, I need a strong buy-in from the top leaders. I need this to come from, so it has to be a top-down approach. I need a leadership which is willing to collaborate, which is willing to talk to me, which is willing to talk with various business units, work in partnership. So I don't need a leadership which is very traditional, but I need something which is very open, a leadership which is open to new ideas, open to new challenges, a leadership which is flexible in its approach, which means that a leadership which believes that if times are changing, my organization needs to change in order to meet the challenges. So, a more adaptable leadership. So, I need my leaders who understand that in this fast changing world, organizations have to continuously adapt. And for that to happen, I need people who are very, very engaged with their employees, who are engaged with what is happening. So I need leadership who show engagement on the ground. So I don't need high-headed leadership, but I need people who can collaborate, who are open to risk, who are open to trying, experimenting, fixing, improving, adopting. So I need those kinds of leadership traits. Okay, so now I'll open the forum for any question and answers if you have before we move on to some case discussions. Yes, please. You may unmute yourself and talk.
In demands on HR profession, ma'am, the second one, growth enables and the change. That one, I have a doubt in. Can you just explain some meaning? Or something?
Okay, so when I say that as HR professionals, we have to be growth enablers and change agents or change influencers. What I mean is that we cannot be satisfied with just being a support function. Though yes, the bookish definition is still that HR is a support function. But then when I'm looking to solve a business problem, when I'm engaging with my business units uh, in driving greater profitability and margins, I'm actually working like a growth agent. I'm also bringing about a lot of change, whether it is in terms of people, it is in terms of processes, it is in terms of aligning myself with the vision, mission, and the values. So, to that extent, can I influence the change that's happening in my organization? This is what it means.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Anything else? Any other questions? If there are no further queries, I'll proceed and I'll come back to the questions again towards the end. So now let's look at some case studies which will kind of cement our understanding about digital HR and why it is so important to look at digital HR and the various ways how companies have actually implemented it. So this is the first case. This is about one of the big four audit firms in the world. And they had been following the traditional method of onboarding, which is that from the day an employee actually joins, that's the day when onboarding starts. And for this organization, there was a long waiting period between when the contract was signed with the employee and the joining date, sometimes as much as 6 to 8 months, which effectively resulted in that particular candidate, because the waiting period was so long and there was no mechanism for the candidate or for the organization to interact during that waiting period, the candidate felt lost, which means their dropout rates were higher. So the HR's goal was very, very clear that it was not just about finding the right candidate, but also about retaining them, effectively onboarding them, and also developing. So we are essentially, if you see, we're looking at the entire employee life cycle. So the problem was, because they had been following the traditional method of onboarding, which most organizations do, and there was a long waiting period. So from the time that the offer letter was given and accepted and till the time that the employees joined, it was a huge gap of months, and because of which the employees felt demotivated, not connected. What did this company really do, right? How did they really use the digital world and technology to improve their HR processes? So they followed a two-pronged strategy. So they had one set of new hires, which were fresh graduates, and the other ones were the experienced hires. Now, for the fresh graduates, onboarding for the fresh graduates meant about engagement, right? Meant about building a connect. But for the experienced hires, it was more about giving them information, bigger information about the organization. What is it doing? Uh, are there any changes to the leadership? So a lot about information sharing. So this particular organization, they tied up with a company which developed an app where pre-boarding and the way where using that app, pre-boarding happened, and the onboarding also was automated to a large extent. And we'll look at some of the ways how pre-boarding was done. And because there was such a huge gap between getting an offer letter, signing an offer letter, and finally joining, they also had feedback mechanism for those employees, one at during the first month, third month, 6 months, even before they actually joined. So all this was part of their pre-boarding activity. So this was web and mobile enabled. So the company would send out a welcome pack to the new hires, and they would also prepare them for the first day on the job. So not only give them a welcome pack, which is all about the documentation needed, the policies and everything, so which cut down the actual orientation and induction time greatly. They would also start sharing the details of their colleagues, the team leaders, and help them virtually navigate through the organization, right? So give them a 360-degree view. So it was like virtual reality. So imagine me wearing one of those spectacles and seeing what my organization will, or what my organization looks like. So instead of going and experiencing that, I'm getting to know it virtually. And because of this particular app had a lot of push notifications enabled, so which means that the HRs didn't have to wait for the employees to join on the first day and find out, but as the employees were navigating the system, leaving feedback, reaching the various milestones, uh, the HRs would get an alert, right? And which would help them to take corrective actions then and there, whether it is in terms of a prospect employee feeling a little demotivated, or not understanding a particular thing, so you could take the corrective action then and there. And obviously you had this also worked like a town hall where you had messages from the CEO, the top leadership. So it really created a high level of engagement for the new hires. What did it lead to? It led to the employees rating their hiring experience on a scale of 5 to 4.45, which is very, very high. And because they already knew so much about the organization even before they joined, even before their formal first day. So their first week experience was 4.12 again out of 5, which is phenomenally good. The application had 81% activation rate, which means initially when they started, so it took a while for the adoption to happen. Not everyone was comfortable, but gradually the application was so simple, the user interface was so friendly that more and more employees started using it, and the activation went up to 81% in the first couple of days itself. And because of the mechanism of feedback at regular intervals in that pre-joining period, The HRs were able to take corrective actions, they were able to build on the experiences. So, the moment I talk about the entire employee experience, this was a perfect example of how this company tried to create a very, very friendly and engaged employee experience even before they started. So, this was one example of using the digital world to make some HR process more efficient. So, here we are looking at the pre-boarding and the onboarding process. Another case study, and again, this is excellent. This is about a leading IT services provider uh, in the world, and this particular IT company provided its services to other organizations who were in the field of digital media, education, e-commerce, publishing, mortgage banking. So, an IT service provider lending out its services to the other companies who were in this field. So, now what were some of these challenges faced by this company? So, they had been using old age softwares, some HRIS system which was not complete and which required a lot of manual intervention. Every now and then, you needed someone to work on those HRIS systems. They needed a cost-effective software solution which would give authenticated and controlled access to the various people. So not everyone would have an access to all the employee data, but specific access. They also needed to automate the HR processes to save time because the current HR systems needed so much of manual intervention. One, there was a room for a lot of error. Also, time became a big challenge for them. And they had various different systems and softwares working in silos, so not integrated together. So there was no consistency of employee information that they were getting. So there was no single dashboard or interface which would throw all information about a particular employee. So the employee database management was very, very poor. Now, the collaboration between the various teams in different locations also was a challenge because, as I said, there were multiple softwares, multiple tools being used which did not speak to each other. So when these tools didn't speak to each other, even the teams found it difficult to collaborate with each other. And maintenance of very simple things like employee records, leave, attendance became an issue. A lot of confidential company data and company information was getting compromised. Security became an issue because the access was not centralized. There was no mechanism to control who gets access to how much of a data. And obviously, the onboarding, separation, so all the processes during an employee's journey was very haphazard. So they needed to streamline the employee's life cycle. So these were very, very critical problems. And I think most of us can relate to it because at some point in our lives, those of us who've been working for long, we would have actually felt one or two of these definitely. We would have been, I would say, we would have experienced these issues. And this company was having it all the time. So what did they do? What did they really go about doing it? So they looked at a solution which was customized. So there are a lot of solutions available in the market, so off-the-shelf product. And if you just pick up off-the-shelf product without actually tailoring it to your need, this is exactly the problem that you face. You don't know what to use, you don't know which ones to leave out and what to include. So they again engaged with a consultant who worked with them, and they looked at a more customized, a more bespoke solution for them, which was cost-effective human resource management system. They looked at various modules. So they now looked at one solution having different modules, and each of these modules were integrated. So each of these modules would talk to each other and solve a business issue. Now, the moment they had a well-defined system in place, data confidentiality and data integrity uh, obviously was handled. So people who could get access to what data. So the whole issue of confidential and secure company information, not being there, actually was ruled out. And in the initial, before they implemented this, they did not have a single dashboard, right? So they didn't have a dashboard which gave them a unified picture of what's happening across the organization so far as employees were concerned. But the moment they had an integrated system, they had one dashboard with various menus, alert systems, notifications. So decision making became simpler. And the issue of really managing employees' attendance and leave was handled because this was integrated very well with the access card. Now, this obviously we're talking about an organization years back, but so we have this issue. And the issue of not getting or everyone getting access to information was actually handled by defining role-based access. So who gets access? So not everyone, even within HR, not everyone needs access to all kinds of employee data. If I'm an HR executive, I don't need data pertaining to the appraisal cycle. I don't need performance appraisal data for the employees. I probably need data with regards to day-to-day operations. So defining who gets access to what data, even within HRs, this helped to secure the data firmly. And obviously they went in for 256 bill SSL VPN encrypted software, which led to some of these things, right? So significant cost reduction of the HR processes, because now they didn't have multiple processes who could not talk to each other, multiple systems and tools which could not talk to each other. So there was one unified system where the different modules were integrated, one dashboard giving a complete picture. So it obviously meant reduction in the time. Time is money. So one is that. Second is also the various conflicting systems were brought together under one umbrella, right? And it led to obviously better employee database management. Initially, various other teams in different locations were sending disparate data, but that issue got tackled. And there was a huge reduction in the instances of unauthorized data access because they tied up data access with the various roles and designations in the organizations, all at the click of the finger, as they say. And because everything got automated, obviously, whether it is attendance, leaves, everything became regularized and faster. So another indicator for us how using digital technology or how using technology in the right spirit can actually help. So here we are just not looking at taking a tool, taking a software, but we are looking at how can we tailor it. We are also looking at tying it up with the roles in the organization. So it's not just about taking something and implementing. It's about taking something or maybe creating something, experimenting it as a pilot, seeing the result of it, and then rolling it out. Another case study, right? And what did this company do here? Now, this is about a company which was in the space of online marketplace. So this company was an online marketplace for customized rate quotes on loans, credit cards, bank loans, insurance policies, personal loans. So imagine it to be an interface where you log in as a customer, you give your requirement, and basis your requirement, the rates are generated from multiple players. And this company obviously used, so already digital, using web and mobile platform to reach out to its customer base. Now, what were some of those significant challenges it faced? Again, they were using multiple technology platforms. So the issue of duplicity and multiplication, so there was duplication happening. So multiple platforms doing the same thing. As a result of which, there was a lot of invalidated data that came, right? Again, because they were using multiple platforms, these multiple platforms were managed by different teams. So there could be, imagine like there could be one team managing the platform which was SAP based. One team may be using Oracle based platform. So, and each of these do not talk to each other. Various teams are handling it. So there was no unified single dashboard, single interface. So obviously it was again about a lot of invalid, incorrect, duplicate data that was thrown up. The onboarding process was manual to a large extent, again, because there were so many different tools and platforms that they were using. So the safest was to use an onboarding process which was standardized, use it manually, right? The data, as I said, was inconsistent, disparate, not relevant. And the payroll processing was not synced with the various platforms because obviously in the absence of one unified platform, you didn't have the payroll being synced with it. So it led to a lot of times inaccurate payroll processing happen. It led to delayed payroll processing happen. And the systems were not scalable, which means that the systems were not really challenged to meet the new requirements. So if the team size grew, if the organization expanded, the systems could not deal with the expansion. So what did this company do? Again, they looked at one unified HR management system, which had a lot of different modules. So they brought all the different platforms together. They did away with duplicate channels and they used the various modules of a single platform, whether it is leave, attendance, expense reimbursements, onboarding, exits, and they integrated all of this with the mobile applications. So users could really use all of them or reach out to these from their mobile, right? So a system of anytime, anywhere application, basically, right? In some places where they had to still continue with the existing ERP. Say, for instance, finance. If they couldn't do away with that, they ensured that that got integrated with the new system that was built and implemented. They also supplemented this whole process with a mechanism of employee feedback and survey. And this is what is meant by creating a culture of change, creating a culture of digital transformation. Because for this to happen, you also need buy-in from people. A digital transformation cannot happen if the various stakeholders in the organization do not become a party to this whole phenomena. So getting a buy-in from your management, getting a good feeler from your employees, all that becomes very important for this to permeate organization-wide. And this is what this organization did. They went back to their employees, asked them for a feedback on, so whether it was employee self-service, right? So how do you apply for leave? Is it simpler now? Does your leave get approved in time? What changes do you think we should make? They went back, collected that data, incorporated. So a system of continuous improvement, right? A system, this is what agility is. It is your ability to deal with changes as and when they happen, right? And in order to reduce the turnaround time for the most frequently asked question, they had chatbots. So probably one of those first companies to start using chatbots for FAQs. And what did this lead to? Right? So this is what happened as a result of the initiatives that the organization took. 100% HR transactions were automated, so which means the manual interventions were scraped. There was a marked reduction in the payroll processing time with 90% accuracy because now the payroll system was integrated in that entire HRMS. Anytime, anywhere access to employee data because they used mobile technology, they integrated their application with the mobile. So the employees could really access it from anywhere. It led to almost a full automation of their processes, of the HR processes, with about 99.5% uptime. The response time, now here I'm talking about the turnaround time, because they started using chatbots for the most asked questions, and only some questions which could not be answered needed manual intervention. So obviously the response time significantly improved, and the tracking mechanism also showed a marked improvement of about 65 to 75% only by way of having a unified dashboard which gave them, a complete picture of every employee. And they started looking at 100% adoption of online confirmation for their the various deals. So as a customer, when I went into it, looked for certain rates, I came back. So instead of relying on manually someone responding, the moment I had a series of questions listed, so it resulted in immediate translation of deals. So my deals were closing faster, confirmations were happening faster, and there was a single single cloud-based HR system. So everything was on the cloud. Again, the reason we are looking at these success cases is to understand that while we've been working fine so far, but now is the time for us to change. Now is the time for us as HR professionals to start upskilling ourselves, because digital HR and HR analytics, these are the two things which is the future of HR. So using data, using evidence, trying to solve a business problem, and how I can leverage technology to uh, solve a challenge, to help take a decision, to enable a mindset change in the organization, to bring about a culture change. This is, in a sense, the role of digital HR, and not restricted to just using certain applications, tools, and software which is available. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation and my discussion. Now, I'll open the forum again for any questions. Anything that anyone would like to add, or uh, if you have any success stories from your organizations, I'd love to hear them.
Any example of any apps that would reduce the onboarding processes?
So again, I think there is an app called Alt Workplace, which companies use. So there are actually many applications. Again, my advice would be that don't go in for an app as it is, right? You try to find out what is the challenge, what is the business challenge that you're facing, and then start looking at solution instead of just looking at an application or a software in isolation with the business needs. So first look at the business need, then go hunting for the right solution for it. But there are many applications. This session was just an introduction, and as I mentioned, we will be launching a full-fledged course, a certification program on digital HR in January 2021. And we are in the process of just fine-tuning a couple of things. This was just to give you a flavor of what this whole field of digital HR is all about. And there is, yes, please,
Ma'am, I
Pratmesh.
have a doubt. So, as you know, I am actually working in a digital HR domain.
Okay.
How would my digital HR domain experience help me to transition into the like HRBP roles? Like, how advantageous it would be, since I know all the in and out of the digital HR now.
Okay. Wonderful. So then you are the right person to throw a lot of light on queries in this session. Okay. So how would your experience in digital HR help you as a business partner, right? Now,
No, my first question is how would I jump into that? And the next question would be how would it help me as a business partner also?
Okay, so when you say how will you transition from the field of digital HR to an HRBP, let's try and understand that these are not isolated fields. There
Okay.
are various ways how organizations go about implementing it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the HRBP model, right? The
Mm-hmm.
HRBP model talks about uh, HRBP being the interface between the business units and your center of excellence. Your
Okay.
center of excellence are the various domains, the specializations within HR, which is typically HR analytics,
Mm-hmm.
talent acquisition, talent development, and a CNP. And
Um,
you have HR operations, which is a separate domain. So
okay.
HRBP, as I gave you, as you know, I mentioned in my example, functions as that interface using which the business units try to solve, or if they are facing a problem, you take it to the various COEs. So if it's a problem pertaining to recruitment, right,
Mm-hmm.
that is taking a lot of time as a result of which a project is suffering, you become the channel. You talked to the talent acquisition COE, get
Mm-hmm.
it resolved. If it is something to do with L&D, you talk to them, get it resolved for your business unit, right? If it has to do with some data that the organization needs, or you talk to the analytics, the HR analytics team, get the data, see the trend. Can you predict? Can you forecast a solution, right? So that is about the HRBP model. Now, if you have an expertise or in a digital HR, you can leverage that, right, to actually look at data more effectively, right? You can also
Okay.
leverage that to give immediate resolution of problems, or immediate resolution to the problems of your SBUs. So if I'm looking at, if I'm talking about transitioning, it is not compartmental, right? It is not like if you worked in digital HR, you cannot look at a transition to HRBP. It's absolutely possible. All that
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying is these are new skill sets needed. So
Okay.
organizations can have a separate team which is digital HR, right? But it
Okay.
will get,
Okay.
in due course of time, it will get woven with the entire HR domain. It will not
Mm-hmm.
be a separate thing. It will be each of us as HR professionals need to have a digital mindset, need to have all those capabilities. So you will have an advantage there because you already have an expertise in that,
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
right? Yes. Any other questions? Any thoughts? Any personal experiences for those who have some insight into digital HR and if their company is already implementing it?
HR analytical will come under digital, ma'am.
Okay, so HR analytics is a center of excellence in a HRBP model, right? When I'm talking about a strategic HR model, then HR analytics becomes a COE. Otherwise, organizations can also go about implementing HR analytics as a general skill needed by all HR professionals. So HR analytics and digital HR, right? These are not essentially two different things. We are essentially looking at how we can leverage the technology to make better decisions and leverage technology to gather data better, to understand data better, to predict things better, and to give solutions to problems in a more holistic way. This is what it is. So
Thank you.
let's not look at HR as a very segregated and compartmentalized domain. They all overlap, and we are talking about, so in the emerging skill sets, right? We are looking at that whatever we have done today as HR professionals, now we need to upskill ourselves to meet the challenges.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. Anything else? Thank you so much, everyone, for attending it. Hope this gave you, or this initiated you into this whole field of digital HR. Of course, this is just a snippet of what this whole field is all about. And we'll look at it in detail actually in our certification program. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, ma'am.
To learn more on digital HR, subscribe to CPD membership. Click on the eye icon above to know more.
The evolution of HR showed a shift. From being task-based, HR became a skill and a competency-based discipline. This session focuses on what is digital HR, the need for it and how it has evolved over the years. HR professionals have gradually become advisors and influencers to businesses. HR professionals have started impacting profitability and have emerged as something more than a support function. Customizable and a cost-effective human resource management system provides an effective solution to businesses since different modules cater to different needs. There is a dynamism in workflows and highly encrypted technology that ensures data confidentiality. So far, success has been achieved and there has been a significant reduction in the cost and the time taken to complete tasks, and has also boosted efficiency.